So you're good.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our monthly TAT Chat. Certainly a pleasure for us to get together today, and I want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule today to connect with us. My name is James Bennett, and I'm the first vice chair for the board, and I've been part of 10 at the top here since 2017. Before we jump into today's topic, which is certainly going to be a good one, I want to cover a few updates from 10 to the top, from things that's happened last month, as well as some upcoming activities. In the first quarter of this year, it's been quite busy for 10 to the top, as our role as regional convener. We've already hosted 19 regional engagements and with more than 550 participants. And the coming weeks are going to be especially full with a number of activities and events that are already on the calendar. The next Upstate Connect, held monthly in partnership with the Urban League of the Upstate. It'll take place on Friday, the 19th, Friday, April the 19th at the McLaren Center in Greenville, with the focus of the continued development in the west end of Greenville, which is just blowing up. We have a few spots that are available for those that are interested. If you are, we'll put the link in the chat so that you can register. I'm not sure if Justine's going to do that or oh, there it is. Celeste is right
Celeste,
on
our
point.
new person that
Very good.
you will meet, everyone will meet in a little while, is taking care of that for us. So
Yeah, yeah, very good. Thank you, Celeste. Our quarterly Upstate Entrepreneur Ecosystem meeting will be held on Tuesday, April 23rd at the South Bend Winery in Greenwood. The topic for this session is community economic development in South Carolina, and our guest speaker will be Bernie Mazik, who's the president and CEO of the South Carolina Association for Community Economic Development. And again, the link for that, if you want to attend, will be in the chat. 10 at the top, we've got some great board members and great funding partners. And our leadership level partners are shown on the screen, as you can see. Most of the events that 10 at the top has is open to all that are interested, but there are a special series of events that are called Pizza and Networking that are specifically reserved for board members and funding partners. The next Pizza and Networking event will be held May the 9th from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. at REWA. The topic of this event is the role of water utilities in the future growth of the upstate. So if your organization is a funding partner, you're already welcome to attend and qualified to attend. So hope that you'll join us. And again, a link for that will be included in our chat. May 16th. May 16th is going to be a very busy day for not only 10 at the top, but also for the Upstate Mobility Alliance. The Upstate Mobility Alliance is hosting an Upstate Mobility Summit from 1:30 to 4 p.m. at the Greenville Downtown Airport. This event is free for anyone who is interested in transportation and mobility in the Upstate. And you're going to hear a little bit more about this event shortly from GP McClear. But immediately following the Mobility Summit, 10 at the top is hosting our 4th annual Blues, Brews, and Barbecue Outdoor Extravaganza, also at the Greenville Downtown Airport. And this event will include great food and beverages from all across the upstate, as well as music from Mac Arnold and a plate full of blues. Tickets for this event is $30. If your organization is a funding partner for 10 at the top, then you should have already received information about your complimentary tickets. And again, links to register for the summit and the Blues and Barbecue will be included in the chat. And I see Celeste has it already out there for us. So just want to get through those a few updates and announcements. And now it's my pleasure to turn it over to GP McClear, the director of Upstate Mobility Alliance, who will talk to us more about Upstate Mobility Alliance and introduce our guest speaker. GP?
Thanks, James. Afternoon, everybody. Excited to have you today. Today's TAT Chat is a little bit of a preview for the Mobility Summit. Our guest, who I'll turn it over to in just a second, is Brandon Corsentino. He works for Beep, which is an autonomous vehicle company. He's going to go into all of that. I'm not going to steal his thunder. Also, I'm going to learn a lot too. But Brandon is also one of our featured speakers at the Upstate Mobility Summit. This is the first time we've put this event together. It'll be at the hangar space, which is at the downtown airport next to Runway Cafe. And we'll have Brandon there. We will also have the downtown airport itself talking about the future of the airport and its surrounding area, as well as the newly appointed Deputy Secretary of Intermodal and Freight at DOT, Jennifer Necker, who oversees the Office of Public Transit. And we'll also have a panel of some transit agency directors, mostly more rural transit directors, and moderated by James Keel at Greenlink. And then, as James said, we will roll up the hangar door and walk out to Blues Brews and Barbecue on the tarmac at the downtown airport. The 10 of the Top crew's got a really great event planned there. That event will also have a little bit of a mobility flair to it. We will have a tiny bus concert preceding Mac Arnold on one of the Greenlink buses on site. We'll also have a couple other demo automobiles out there from around the area as a way to kind of keep that momentum alive. And of course, there's always planes going in and out. So we look forward to having you. That's May 16th. It is free. I also did want to plug, and I'll put the link in the chat. On May 9th, we just announced we are also releasing a report on a GSP transit hub. It's a grant from DOT we got last year. We've been working over the last 12 months. Some of you may have been involved in this or taken our public survey, but on the idea of establishing a transit hub at Greenville-Spartanburg International Airport. And we'll be hosting a release of that report on May 9th, and the link's in the chat if you want to come to that. That's also 10 at the top. We've got like 3 other 10 at the top events that day. So just spend all of May with 10 at the top. But with that, Brandon, I'll turn it over to you. You can go ahead and start sharing your screen if you'd like. Brandon Corsentino is, like I said, with Beep. He's also going to be a speaker at our Upstate Mobility Summit on May 16th. And he's going to talk to us today a little bit about Beep and about what they see coming down the pipe. Brandon, I will turn it over to you. You have the steering wheel. Awesome. But actually, ironic pun intended.
Yeah, I don't have the steering wheel. The cars do. But thank you, GP. Really appreciate it, everybody. Glad to be here. I've known GP now probably going on close to 2 years, and was introduced by, I saw him on the call, his name, Fred Payne, who, I think the ideas of autonomy, and the realization of them don't happen without people like Fred, who has been an advocate for innovative mobility for a long time. And so, what we're about to share today is those that have this visionary like mindset. And so I'll go over a little bit of, where the state of autonomy is. There's a lot of perception out there, a lot of noise out there. I imagine most of you, if you're on the Twitter sphere, you just pay attention maybe to what Elon Musk says, and that's not always the case in terms of how this market's going to really evolve and scale. But there's a lot of exciting elements to this industry. There's a lot of exciting things as is happening for Beep, and I was really appreciative when GP asked me to join this and the panel, because South Carolina is playing such a key role, and I'll dive into that a little bit as well in terms of some of our partnerships, both from a vendor side and academia side, that are advancing this industry. So, I will go through a presentation. It'll be high level, but by all means, if you have a question, I definitely welcome the conversation here. It's a really interesting topic, something I'm very excited about. And I'll give you a little background of how I ended up here, because I could assure you, when I was going through college, I did not think I would be working for a company that's enabling autonomous mobility, self-driving cars. At the time, iRobot seemed like a deterrent to the concept of it. But I came from, I went to the University of Florida, so I'm sorry for my Gamecocks if there are any on the call. But from the University of Florida, I actually was in the automotive industry working for a company called Reynolds & Reynolds, selling dealership management software to dealerships across the country. I covered the Southeast market specifically. And after that, I made my way into the American Diabetes Association. And I spent 6 years working for the American Diabetes Association, leading cycling events, walk events, and also learning about advocacy efforts for those that were having limited access to their medical appointments to be able to gain access to insulin. And then, being that I live in Florida, we also were mindful of resiliency efforts for those that lose power and they have to keep insulin refrigerated. And in a world where I was trying to do something impactful, stars aligned, cross paths with people that were starting up this company, Beep, and talking about how autonomous mobility can really revamp access for people. And when I really heard their story, heard where this industry can go to help, drive access and mobility efforts, it seemed like a good fit for me. So that was going on about 3 years ago today. And what I'm about to share with you kind of gives you a little storyboard of where things have been and where things are going. So I hope you enjoy hearing the information and excites you of what's to come and hopefully to come near term in South Carolina. So at the core of autonomous mobility, people have various reasons why it comes into the marketplace at all. But in reality, there are three core components we're trying to shake up, if you will. One is we all deal with congestion, whether that's urban congestion in downtown cores, on the highway, and congestion creates a domino effect. The more traffic there becomes, the more drivers can be irritable, dismissive. They start looking at their phone because they're in bumper to bumper. They're looking at the accident. It creates human error. And today, 94% of accidents are a product of human error. And so when you introduce autonomy in an effective way, we can create a safer road system. And we can do that by enabling mobility with access, leveraging data, leveraging heat maps, what we know about people and where they go, to give them the opportunity to connect to jobs, to school education, to entertainment, drive the economy forward. We recognize that cars are expensive. You can't really get out of a dealership. And I was in the automotive industry just almost 10 years ago. The cost of a new car is pricing people out of access. And the number that you see there on my screen of 10% of US households not having personal transportation, that's only going to increase. And that number jumps to 40 or 50% of number of households that have one vehicle. And so if you have, two caretakers or two household contributors that are working, you have to figure out within that who's driving, who's working from home. And as there's a movement to go to hybrid or back to the workplace, we need to reinforce access for people. And in doing so, we have to transform public transit. Public transit is taking on a significant evolution, whether that be electric, whether it be on demand, and in this case, autonomous, which can fit the bill for all of it. It's no longer solving your problem in transit with just more buses. It's being strategic in the way it's done with vehicles of different size, configurations, and functions. And that's the purpose of autonomy and how we see it really evolving in the marketplace. And so that alludes to where we see our form factors taking shape of autonomous solutions. There's not that much out there as it relates to autonomous buses. There's a lot of factors as to why that becomes a complex solution. What you see now is either the robo-taxi space, which is what Tesla will introduce. It's what you're seeing in San Francisco with companies like Cruise and Waymo. They're more in the sphere of Uber without the driver. And that's just going to help the bottom line on a B2C business model. The second tier you're going to see is the autonomous shuttle solution. It fits into what is commonly called ACEs, autonomous, connected, electric, shared. How do we reduce the number of vehicles on the road? We do it with a solution that can get more than 4 people in the vehicle. We do it with a solution that's agile, that can go into downtown corridors, adapting to different lane widths, can go into airports, can go to universities. can really connect people where they need to go and solve first last mile connectivity. Now, what makes Beep very unique is Beep does not manufacture these vehicles. And I'll get to the manufacturing component in a little bit, which I think you all will appreciate very much. We do not create the sensors that allow these vehicles to drive. In some ways, I draw a parallel of Beep and what we see as a necessity in the autonomous space to airlines. So imagine everyone here has some airline that's their preferred option, whether that's Delta, United, Southwest, JetBlue. And I imagine it's because it gets you to where you need to go, where your family is, and you like their user interface on their app, and you trust their service, at least as much as we can trust airlines these days. I draw a parallel to that because you're not booking your flight, at least typically, because it's a Boeing or an Airbus or various manufacturers. You book it because you trust who you're booking with. And in Beep, we want to integrate multiple vehicle manufacturers in the autonomous space into a solution that's trusted regardless of vehicle size, use case, or function. How do you do that? You do that by creating human-like behaviors in our service technology. We recognize an autonomous vehicle driving is not that difficult. An autonomous vehicle driving and make human-like perception decisions gets a lot more complex. And so if a vehicle that's en route sees a UPS truck, how does it decide, do I need to turn left? But can I turn left if the bus stop is there? Can I go around? If I'm going to go around, are the cars oncoming, and am I going to take a safe action to do that? Can I just drop someone off right here? Is it safe? Can I wait? Is that person about to leave? And last, does the weather permit me to do anything like that? Does the road construction permit me to do anything like that? And so what you're going to see in a little bit in this presentation is what are we doing to solve these components, and how are we working not as a silo of Beep in our research and development team, but with different university partners, with different partners in the industry to advance these sort of solutions that create that sense of trust. And so to date, we've been predominantly working with Generation 1 vehicles, and we've deployed throughout the country. Again, I've referenced universities, airports, city, downtown corridors, medical campuses, senior living communities as areas where we've identified use cases that can make a difference. And when we deploy in these communities, and this is true, when I say we, it's Beep's methodology from learnings, but it's really anywhere that you want to take innovative mobility and introduce it to a community and how it should be done, regardless of who you work with. And so for us, it's been, we need to build a curriculum for first responder training. The vehicles are autonomous, but they're also electric. How are you managing those batteries? How are you ensuring you can handle safety and security response? How do you work with different stakeholders? You know, we've contracted with cities, we've contracted with transit authorities. Everybody has a certain set of criteria. We've deployed and contracted with Yellowstone National Park. So how do you make sure that a vehicle that has so much data, cameras on it, sensors on it, is doing its job, but also making sure we protect the rights of everybody in and around the vehicle as well? And ultimately, and this is something that I'll be open with the group, there's a lot of fear from the transit industry, from unions perhaps, that these vehicles are going to come in and just change the landscape and take away jobs. The reality of it is, one, unfortunately, due to COVID, many transit authorities have yet to get back to ridership numbers pre-COVID, and they've had to cut service. So how do you find ways to fill the gaps in service in a cost-effective solution, and also fill the gaps when CDL holders, certified driver license holders, are aging out of the industry. When I started with this industry almost 3 years ago, the average age of a CDL holder was 58. It is now 60. It is running a direct correlation. It's not getting better. And we're already, as a nation, about 15,000 CDL holders behind what we need to support transit and transportation across the industry. And so this is about fitting within an ecosystem to support gaps in transit that get people where they need to go. That could be during off-peak hours. It could be during extended routes that may have limited ridership, thus the smaller form factor is more optimal. But what we realize is here that there's 8 buckets that we feel that this industry can make a difference. And while they're cool vehicles, everybody likes to show it off. It's great for, the press release, absolutely. These are the 8 use cases that will advance this industry forward and create complementary services to transit. And so how, in our theory of does Beat know this? Beat knows this because we've deployed more autonomous shuttles than anyone in the country. We've deployed them in different states, different cities, different political climates, all with electric connected vehicles for the purpose of shuttling people. And you can see here, it's all across the country. We're about to launch in Hawaii. Before year end, we'll also be in New Jersey, in Mississippi, and Oklahoma. These are all with our Generation 1 vehicles that move at the blazing speed of anywhere from 12 to 15 miles per hour. And so what does that do for the future of autonomy? We've been able to deploy over the last 5 years with these vehicles in very defined control use cases, so we understand the gaps. That means technology that is redundant. I can go into the weeds, and I'm not going to go too much into the weeds today of the LiDAR technology, but that's what's predominantly been used by the industry to date is a function called LiDAR. It helps us map the environment, essentially creating an invisible rail that we travel along in a circulator and mixed-use traffic, and then it allows us to dictate how the vehicle reacts to the interactive areas. But then we realize, well, how do you handle inclement weather? LiDAR doesn't do a great job of that. We need to integrate radar. We need to be able to dictate, is that a tree branch or is that a child? LiDAR will stop for both, but it doesn't make the distinction in how do you handle each. And so we're introducing camera perception as well. And so you have redundancy of technology that supports this. But then the last piece here is, how do you scale technology? And what we learned was these are technology companies that were bringing the first generation of the vehicle to market. What really needed to happen was automotive companies come into play. And so what does that mean? And here's where it gets fun for South Carolina. It means that we need to work with tier 1 auto manufacturers. South Carolina knows a thing or two about that. Industrialized manufacturing, mass production, enabling more affordable solutions. And they understand the concept of the US requirements. We need to be Buy America compliant to scale. We need to be ADA compliant. We need to have wheelchair deployments. We need to have that fused technology that connects with street infrastructure, with signals. And then we need to be able to expand our routes and be dynamic enough that we don't just solve the problems of now, but we solve the problems of 10 years from now, so these vehicles don't age out of their, functional usefulness to the community. And so when it relates to this technology, what you see here, I know this is a good bit. I'm trying to, give you a taste of it all. What you see here is that Generation 2 vehicle. It's what I would consider, to date, we've been working with the BlackBerry. It's cool. Everybody loved it. But now we know there was a lot of limited function to it. But, you got to walk before you can run. And then you design a vehicle that really just needs the software updates. And there comes the iPhone with its iOS updates. That's what this vehicle you see here is. This is designed by a company called Holon, whose parent company is Bentler. Bentler should be familiar to some in this area, as they have the plant there in South Carolina. And they have a network of partners to help enable the development and manufacturing of this vehicle. This vehicle is, again, a purpose-built autonomous vehicle. You walk inside this vehicle, and I'll show the interior in a moment here. There's no steering wheel. There is no pedal. It is redefining how vehicles for shared use look. And I can tell you from a regulatory standpoint, that created quite the process in how we get this approved on the roadways, because Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standard compliance was defined in 1985. 1985 did not account for this. But working with the tier 1 auto manufacturer that understands the requirements and components of how you overcome some of those parameters, we have designed a vehicle in partnership with Pininfarina that meets regulatory compliance. Pininfarina is a tier 1 vehicle design manufacturer that designs Ferraris. So you get the function of a great vehicle from Bentley with the style and appeal of a designer from Ferrari. And it has Beep's complementary technology to enable service. So our focus is going to be on, if somebody shows up with a wheelchair, how does the vehicle know to deploy its ramp? If there's a medical emergency inside, what can you do? How do you communicate with a command center where they're monitoring these vehicles to make sure that safety and security protocols are in place? And that when I went back earlier to the UPS decision, that the vehicle is following its proper mission. There's ways we can do that with technology, and then there's ways that we have to teach the algorithm. And that's what we will be doing as Beep with a command center that's headquartered in Orlando, but we ultimately plan to stand up across the country with regional hubs and help and reinforce a new age of workforce development in the automotive space. It's something we're already doing with some college partners as we continue to expand. So this vehicle has a top speed of 37 miles per hour. Again, it is an electric vehicle. It's ADA compliant. And when you add the words electric, ADA compliant, and Buy America compliant, what we're doing for the industry of autonomy is making it accessible to the marketplace for the United States, because the infrastructure bill requires those components to tap into significant grant funding. And there's billions of dollars out there that gives the opportunity for transit authorities and municipalities to access these vehicles and fill their gaps in transit with innovation. But the reality of it is these vehicles do not just come overnight. We've been in conversations with Bentley going on 5 years now since the early iteration of Beep. And the vehicles are going to be ready for commercial use in scale in 2026. They'll be manufactured, put together at a manufacturing plant in Florida, but leveraging partners throughout the Southeast, including Bentley Parts, including Continental Tires, those that are in South Carolina. So our focus is on a Southeast go-to-market to really showcase where there's strong proximity and access to parts replacement and service. In doing so, we're working with a lot of strategic partners. That includes working with Florida State College of Jacksonville on a manufacturing and maintenance curriculum as it relates to autonomous vehicles. We're working with Clemson and their CUI car campus on research to help define routes and modification of routes based on heat maps and detection of people and pedestrians. We have a contract with them alongside Argonne National Labs on this research. We're also working with various cities, various universities on things like how to make sure our communication on and around the vehicle complies with ADA, making sure those that are visually or audibly impaired have access to these vehicles. So this is a comprehensive program that Beep is focused on bringing partners to the table that can advance it forward, not just for the whole lawn mover or for Beep, but really the industry where all tides rise together. And in doing so, we're working with a lot of college and universities. We're working with a lot of cities to give feedback and enable the growth of this industry. So when GP asked, for me to speak today, I was really excited because one, we've got the relationship with Clemson. You have the manufacturers there, but it really takes that cohesive network of cities, universities, DOTs, and private sector to come together to advance something as innovative and comprehensive as this to solve many of the challenges that have plagued the country, really since COVID. So I'll go ahead and stop there, knowing that I had, I think, 45 minutes with questions, and I know a lot of this was, high level or introductory for many, in case there's any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Brandon. Does anyone have any questions? Feel free to put them in the chat or shout them out. I've got a couple, but are there any to start?
GP, I have a comment to make, if I may.
Fred.
First of all, Brandon, thank you so much for a great overview and summary of what Beep is doing. As you know, we've been looking for answers like Beep is looking for answers for several years now. And we do see several options, and you've given a great overview of the possibilities. And so we're still interested. I mean, the folks that I'm working with are still interested in working with you. I know you've had some changes in your personnel. The lady that had worked with us in the trench, really to get some things going here in Greenville, I think she's no longer with the company. And but anyway, thank you for being here today. And I do have one specific question. So the Beep, I want to know, are you at a point where you can talk about operational cost for one vehicle, for 10 vehicles, or that kind of thing? I mean, I've seen a proposal from a couple of years ago,
Yep.
and one of the challenges in people making decisions is the absolute cost. Is there a way to bring that down over time? So could you respond to that?
Yes, Fred, happy to do that, and good to hear from you. So in terms of the cost, and I'll use the hold-on mover that I showed some renderings there for, and Dean, I do see your question. I'll bring that in as well. Depending on quantity of order, you can expect a vehicle acquisition, I'll say acquisition, of anywhere from $360,000 to $400,000 for the vehicle itself. Now there's financing, there's, again, lots of money from the federal government for electric solutions that meet Buy America compliance that go up to as much as 85% of a federal cost share. Beyond that, our cost is typically a license that will cover the software that enables the remote monitoring for the service. And then you have components like insurance. Now, when you don't have a driver on board, if you look at this from an operating cost per hour of a similar size vehicle, your operating costs are about 40% less than that of a vehicle with a driver. Ultimately, what that does for you is allows you to be agile with your vehicles. This vehicle has a 15-person capacity. You could say, hey, why wouldn't I just get a full-size bus? Well, if this vehicle's 400,000, we'll go on the high-end number. A full-size electric bus right now runs in the area of 1 million. And so you're able to get a few of these buses, these shuttles, and deploy them and be agile for off-peak performance. And when you add in the fact that there's no driver, you expand your ability to service off-peak. So I can't give you the perfect answer there in terms of what that monthly service cost is, because there's a lot of factors in terms of number of vehicles. But a good rough order of magnitude would be, you're paying the 360 or 400 and your recurring monthly for license puts you at like 8 to 10,000.
Great answer. If I may respond to that. So the one thing, if when you look at the factors that people want, they want reliability. So is it going to be, pick me up at the reliable time, deliver me at the reliable time, that kind of thing? Is it safe? And one of the ways you increase safety is you put it on a dedicated right of way. So the right of way can be on the ground, and there's some vehicles out there that are that are proposing to put them on the ground. There's one out in California, and I won't talk about names, but you're aware of them. Yep. And they all have cost for monitoring, for having the stations. Like, I've been in your monitoring station in Orlando. I know what you guys do in the control booth. And so I know you got to have some stuff like that. I think if we wanted to do something that had a dedicated routeway with the kind of vehicles that would be available for us in now or in the near future sometime, we want to begin doing that. But we want them to be elevated where they have to be, to go over roadways, to reduce congestion on the roadways, or over streams, or that kind of thing, or just overall, maybe everywhere, to improve overall safety. Because if you're the only vehicles on the road, you're going to reduce accidents. So that's a big advantage. Would you comment on that and the cost of that?
Yeah, I mean, so what I will tell you is infrastructure is obviously very costly, and that's one of the cost benefits of autonomy versus a light rail system or anything that requires significant infrastructure for dedicated. And Fred, while you're right, dedicated lane creates an increased level of service reliability. You obviously have much more control over the frequency at which a vehicle shows up. What we are doing with partners, and there's one I'll call out in Atlanta, the Cumberland Community Improvement District, right around where the Atlanta Braves play. We are providing a service that ultimately will be a 3.5-mile loop that connects the Braves Stadium, the Battery, which is a sports entertainment district, the mall, the convention center, and a couple other components. They did a traffic study working with their partners of Jacobs Engineering, Kinley Horn, to determine what their traffic is in every component of it. When they originally were thinking of doing a dedicated lane of, for their infrastructure, which cost in the area of $300 million, they ultimately determined, based on their traffic data, they really only need about half of that to be a dedicated lane because of that traffic density, while half of it, we can operate in mixed-use traffic. And we can slash your infrastructure cost roughly, not completely, but roughly in half. And so all of a sudden, a $300 million project became roughly $175 million. And there, in your case, and benefits to running a system that's autonomous, that can be agile in both, versus maybe a light rail system or a system that requires full infrastructure. But you optimize the service headway. And so there's a lot of ways you can look at it in terms of the cost factor there. I do see a few questions coming in. So Dean, from a community liability standpoint, there's there's going to be a lot of few factors answers here. But where it is a turnkey service, BEEP provides full staff support. We do fully indemnify. We have insurance coverage. We, take full liability of any solution that we have. John, do you have liability insurance partners? We do. If that's something where you have interest, we can obviously talk offline. And then Dean, when it relates to local transit systems, so I have talked to James Keel. We actually pursued a grant alongside James and Clemson University. All right. This is not, again, it's a gray answer. We could work where the transit authority is the operator. We could do it as BEEP, as a turnkey service contracted by the transit authority. We've also contracted directly with cities where they don't provide a certain level of service from the transit authority. If it is something more of a unique circulator that maybe the city wants to have it be a public-private partnership and private industry pay into the system. We've contracted with, in Atlanta, I just mentioned Cumberland, it's the CID, the Community Improvement District. We've contracted with CRAs, community redevelopment agencies. So it really depends, and then we can level and scale our turnkey solution based on that. I can tell you our largest project is in Jacksonville. It is working and contracted with the Jacksonville Transit Authority, where we are helping them stand up their own command center. And we have a 5-year service contract where we are working with Florida State College of Jacksonville to train new staff for JTA. on all services Beep provides, and it will be a transition process from Beep staffing and supporting to JTA over the 5 years. And now this is a significant project that will ultimately have about 140 autonomous vehicles. So that is part of the transition, and then ultimately they'll just be left with the software license to support the vehicles that we would support on the back end. And then David, can open source software unlock the scalability the autonomous vehicle industry has struggled to achieve? Yes, 100%. And it's something interesting in that Beep, we have ways to tap into various transit systems. There's in the industry, there's something called GTFS and GTFS RT, where it allows you to be able to track live feed of the vehicle, the real-time schedule, notifications on service. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel as Beep. We find the gaps in how do you create safe and secure solutions that when you don't have a driver on board. But that doesn't mean that we need to create a new fare, collection system. We don't need to create a new on-demand app service where somebody hails the vehicle. And so there's some open source components there that we want to be able to connect with to integrate into existing systems that may already be in place locally or contracted with a local transit authority. And that can go obviously steps further than that, but those are a couple examples of how an open source network enables scale.
Brandon, I had a question, and depending on your answer, we may have time for one more after this. But just for the group, talk about public adoption and the public perception on, or, I've never ridden in a Beep vehicle yet, or a fully autonomous vehicle yet. Talk about that adoption and also the feedback you're getting from riders in the markets that you currently are serving.
Yeah, and so the first thing I'll say is, I could tell you in the world of Beep in those cities that, Lake Nona, Orlando, Florida, we've been operating there for 4 years now. And so the community knows us. And we can laugh because the first generation vehicles went 12 miles per hour. But it's probably a good scenario to start with a slow and control speed, because then people will get on it just like they would get on, again, we're headquartered in Orlando, so I'll use this analogy, just like you'll get on something at Disney World. You trust it just enough, but you have a little bit of nerves when you're doing it, on a roller coaster or anything like that. But then, and it's interesting, I watched a vlog where they said, a video blog where they said, you have to go through 3 phases to adopt autonomy. The first is you have to go through nerves. Everybody in some capacity, even if you're a first mover, are going to have a sense of nerves and not like giving up your independence. The second is excitement. Everybody's going to be really excited about this technology, think it's really cool. But to really scale, you have to get the boredom. And that's when we can fully move to level 4 autonomy, is when you realize you're riding the vehicle and you're looking at your phone because you don't really care about anything other than the fact that you trust the vehicle is going to get you where you need to go. I can tell you, we're probably only there in Lake Nona where we've been for 4 years. Until then, there's a lot of educating. And that's why Beep provides a turnkey service. We can't just provide these vehicles or let the vehicle manufacturers go to market and say la vie, here's the playbook, let it ride. We train first responders. We connect with advocacy groups, much like this group, but anything that's for the elderly, anything that's for the mobility impaired, we work with VAs to introduce this as a service. And we, work through that curriculum build out. We typically also encourage to have an ambassador on the vehicle for the first 6 months, just as a voice and a person to create a sense of comfort and education before you move to fully autonomous solutions. So to your question, GP, we go through the emotional iterations and everybody's different. But having that education and ambassador recruitment program, and then having somebody on board, it helps ease the adoption all that much more. And you also just don't turn it on like a light switch. You find 1 or 2 routes that are going to be effective. And that creates familiarity as well. And so that's also why universities are great. Younger demographic, usually first mover demographic, control speed environment. but you also get some funny situations as well. We deployed at UNC Charlotte. We had a route that went up to Greek Village, and we had to call the cops because we had 2 kids playing chicken with the vehicle because they knew the vehicle would stop as they got closer. But we were successful in driving ridership because it was a university campus, and we were running, after the buses were done for the day, but people still needed to get to the food hall where they needed to go.
Thanks, Brandon. Last sort of really, really big picture. How far away do you think we are from go to a lot and ride away? Because a lot of these, you have to plan the route in many cases. You don't have to get into all of that. But how far away are we from Jetsons?
From Jetsons, I'm going to say 10 years, which probably means 15.
Yeah. Thanks, Brandon. Thank you, Brandon, so much. This was really informative. He has allowed us to send out the slides to those who attended the meeting. So we will do that after the fact. And then as a reminder, May 16th is the Upstate Mobility Summit, where Brandon will be speaking, as well as representatives from DOT, transit authorities, and the downtown airport. It's May 16th at the downtown airport at the hangar space next to Runway Cafe. We'll be there in the afternoon. And thank you, Brandon, so much. I'm going to turn over to Justine for our resource updates and anything else.
Thanks, GP and Brandon. Hey, everyone. I get the honor of introducing our resource update, but first, I know they're ready to go, but we'd like to just take a minute to introduce our newest staff member. We are so excited to have Celeste Flinson with us. She'll be acting as an administrative associate, I think is the final title, helping Dean with funding partner business, board business, and other duties as assigned. Would you like to say a quick hello, Celeste?
Sure. Hello. Thank y'all for having me. I'm looking forward to working with everyone.
All right. Okay. We have the Mary Sunshine House today for a resource update, and John Gross and Brian Vickers are going to be telling us about what's new. Let me get your slides ready, gentlemen. All righty. Just tell me next slide when you're ready. John, I think you're still muted. There we go.
There we go. Sorry, I hit the wrong button.
We all do it.
First, I want to thank you very much. I'll thank you very much for letting us speak to you for a few minutes. We'll try to stay on time. And I am John Gross. I'm one of the board members of Mary Sunshine House. I was VP for a number of years. Now I'm running business development. But I'm going to jump right into who we are and what we do. Mary Sunshine House started in 2017. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. We provide comprehensive independent living community for adults on the autism spectrum. We are located in central South Carolina, right next to Wesleyan University, and I'll let Brian will speak to that in a couple of more minutes. Next slide. Okay, so why the need for Mary Sunshine House? It just so happens I'm the parent of an autistic child, and I just got an email from the state of South Carolina telling me we're number 17,246 or some number like that for certain services from the state. And I'm 12,000 and something for a different kind of service that we requested from the state. So the national challenge, in 2020, 1 in 36 people were being born with autism, some form of autism, and everybody's different. So there's limited choices for families, and there's limited access with the need getting bigger. There's inadequate housing options. It's cost prohibitive, and waiting lists continue to increase. There's a lot of group homes in the upstate area, but most of these autistic adults, we're a community living environment for autistic adults that want their own apartment. And I'll let Brian speak to that a little bit more in just a moment. but there's very few options for this semi-independent living. So you can think of us more like assisted living for adults that need a little bit of help. They're not old enough to qualify for assisted living facilities, but they want to have their own place. They want to have maybe a part-time job, or some of them even a full-time job. And this is growing. So we're trying to provide a cost-effective. Now, we'll tell you, we're not cheap because we don't take any state funding. Our first grant that got us off the ground was from Warren Buffett's sister, Doris Buffett, who has Sunshine Lady Foundation. She gave us our first $1 million in seed money, and thereby that's where we got the name Mary Sunshine House. So I'm going to go next slide and hopefully turn it over to Brian.
Hey everyone, my name is Brian Vickers. I'm the Executive Director at Mary Sunshine House, and it's just a pleasure and honor to be amongst you guys to talk about Mary Sunshine House. So our focus is that we provide enrichment programs for adults on the autism spectrum disorder. So the focus is on apartment living. We have 24/7-hour staffing that comes along side by side to help them and support them in each of these areas of focus. So in the apartment living, where they can just learn how to cook, how to clean, how to take care of their apartment to the best of their abilities. Socialization is a key because people with autism, they have a hard time socializing. So we have an element where they can not just stay in their apartment, they come on down and go to the admin building where they can socialize, interact. So you see some of these pictures here where they're basically employed, where they're working on gyms, where they're riding the CAT bus, which is a free public transportation that they can utilize to the areas they want to go. We also got education. It's basically ongoing life skills development for them. Maybe it's learning how to budget. Maybe it's learning how to cook, where they can process their feelings. So they come together to learn from each other. They have a common, and that common interest is that they all have autism. And it's basically they can relate, they can learn from each other. It's a natural skill development that they're learning from each other. Employment development opportunity where they can find jobs and be connected into the community. And that community integration is important because we're adjacent to Southern Wesleyan University, where again, it's a community. So they can go to the campus and go to the dining hall, walk on the track, play basketball, volleyball, go to the library. It's all right there in close proximities, which is, again, the focus is enrichment programs. So next. So here's what our apartments look like. So they're 702 square feet apartments. So it's 2 bedrooms, 1 bath apartments. John, you want to talk a little bit more about the admin and the apartments?
Yeah, we had we purchased these from Southern Wesleyan, and all of our residents in contract with Southern Wesleyan. After we purchased these, our residents have student IDs to fully have access to the campus. Our admin building is on the right there, and then there's the duplex apartments. We have 5 buildings, 10 units that we're trying to fill up. Our long-term goal, below left, you'll see a quick little shot of inside one of the residences. We had 30 slides, so it's hard to get all that into five or six slides. But and then our admin building on the bottom right, that's our reception area, and that is our admin office. But you know, we're working real hard to grow, and once we get all 10 units filled, we opened in August of this past year. And once we get all 10 units filled up, our goal is to build more facilities and end up with 40 residents and 40 units. So that's our ultimate goal. Next slide. Okay, so these are some of our key contributors and investors update. We have another slide that shows a whole list of other people that are contributing and helping. But one particular benefactor is George Shin, who used to be the principal owner of the Charlotte Hornets, and I think he owns team out of New Orleans at this point in time, but he's a car collector. And we are doing he is doing going to the car auction in Greensboro, North Carolina, later this month. And he's donated this Ford Mustang that you see. Not my particular colors, but it's a hot collector's item. And Mary Sunshine House will receive all the proceeds, the benefit of that, and all the donations that come in while at that car auction. There'll be probably at least 1,000 people there. But you can see the Sunshine Lady Foundation, Southern Wesleyan, the Abney Foundation. Barbara Stone here in Greenville has donated to us very generously. My church, Fellowship Greenville, Dabo's Foundation has helped us buy our 6-seat golf cart. And then as a board member, all the board members, we have 9 board members, and we are all donors to Mary Sunshine House too. It's a part of our becoming a board member, as you might think. And I think we're getting close. So next slide. Do we have another slide?
That'd be it. Yeah, so if you're interested in
No.
buying a car, you know, that April 27th is where those proceeds for that George Shin vehicle. And that I know that we're getting together with Dean also with providing a luncheon for 10 of the top. So that will be in the near future. But we really appreciate just the opportunity to, again, to talk and just this Mary Sunshine House. It's a unique concept. And we're so excited to be here to open new doors for adults on the autism spectrum disorder. Any questions?
Yeah, I would ask anybody that wants an individual tour, you feel free to reach out to us at info@marysunshinehouse.org. That's on one of these slides, and we'll provide. Justine, you can send me slides to everybody, but we're happy to give you individual tours. If you know somebody on the autistic spectrum that needs that independent place to live, contact us, and we can fill you in on all the details. Thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing y'all again soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, John and Brian. We appreciate it. I didn't know that we might be doing some type of lunch, so I look forward to that. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah,
Yeah, that'll be fun. Okay, James Bennett,
Yep, I'm
back to
here.
you.
Well, again, just want to thank everyone for participating today. Especially want to thank our speakers, Brian and John with the Mary Sunshine House, and then as well as Brandon with BEEP. Such great information that is, that how it's going to affect our community. And so we thank you for taking time to let us know what's going on. I want to remind everyone of our next TAT chat will be May the 9th at 3 p.m. The guest speaker will be Monty Robertson, who is the CEO of the Alliance for a Healthier South Carolina, to talk about the South Carolina Health Improvement Plan. And I believe Celeste hopefully will drop us a link to that event in the chat. So again, unless there's anything else to call to my attention, Dean or Justine or anything else, if there's not, then again, I just want to thank you for joining us, and we'll look forward to seeing you in our next TAT chat on May the 9th at 3 o'clock. Have a good weekend, or have a good afternoon, everybody.
Thank you, James.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.